The first question is, what is the most common site of fracture in the humerus? And the answer is surgical neck, because this region is prone to the fracture due to its anatomical narrowing below the humeral head. The next question is, which nerve is most commonly injured in an anterior shoulder dislocation? And the answer is axillary nerve, because it lies close to the glenohumeral joint, making it susceptible to injury during dislocation. The next question is, what is the primary blood supply to the femoral head? And the answer is medial circumflex femoral artery. This artery provides the main blood flow via articular branches. The next question is, which muscle is the stiff flexor of forearm? And the answer is branchialysis. It lies deep to the biceps brachii and is primarily flexor at the elbow joint. The next question is, what is the anatomical landmark for the appendix? And the answer is McBurney's point, located one third from the axis to the umbilicus. It indicates the appendix space. The next question is, which structure forms the roof of the cubital fossa? And the answer is bicipital aponeurosis, because this fibrous band protects the underlying branchial artery and medial nerve. The next question is, well, what is the most common site of aneurysm in the circle of Willis? And the answer is anterior communicating artery, because its small size and high pressure make it prone to aneurysm formation. The next question is, which nerve supplies the skin over the thinner eminence? And the answer is median nerve, because its palmar cutaneous branch innervates the surgeon to the of the hand. The next question is, what is the primary content of the inguinal canals in males? And the answer is spermatic cord, because it contains the vas deferens, testicular artery, and penpiniform plexus. The next question is, which bone forms the medial wall of orbit? And the answer is anthmoid bone. Because the thin lamina papillaceae of the anthmoid separates the orbit of the nasal cavity. The next question is, what is the main action of the sartorius muscle? And the answer is flexion and lateral rotation of the hip. It acts as the Taylor's muscle, aiding in cross-leg sitting. The next question is, which structure passes through the foramen ovule of the skull? And the answer is mandibular nerve, V3. This terminal branch exits the skull to supply the muscles of mastication. The next question is, what is the primary venous drainage of the thyroid gland? And the answer is superior and middle thyroid veins. They drain into the internal jugular vein, while the inferior drains to the brachiocephalic. The next question is, which muscle is innervative by the facial nerve? And the answer is buccinator. It aids in chewing by compressing the cheek, supplied by cranial nerve VII, like that is 7. The next question is, what is the most common site of lumbar puncture? And the answer is L4 to L5 interspace. This level lies below the spinal cord's termination, minimizing injury risk. And the next question is, which structure forms the lateral boundary of the femoral triangle? And the answer is sartorius. It forms the lateral border with the inguinal ligament superiorly and inductor longus medially. Longus medially. The next question is, what is the nerve supply of the to the diaphragm? And the answer is phrenic nerve, C3 to C5. It provides the motor and sensory innervations, critical for breathing. The next question is, which artery supplies the SA node in most individuals? And the answer is right coronary artery, because it supplies the sinoarterial node in about 60% of people via its nodal branch. The next question is, what is the primary content of the carotid sheath? And the answer is common carotid artery, internal jugular vein, and vagus nerve. These structures are enclosed in a facial compartment in the neck. The next question is, which muscle is prime mover for shoulder abduction? And the answer is deltoid, because it abducts the arm beyond 15 degrees, assisted by supraspinatus initially. The next question is, what is the most common site of fracture in radius? And the answer is distal radius. Collar fracture occurs here, often from a fall on an outstretched hand. The next question is, which structure passes through the optic canal? And the answer is optic nerve and ophthalmic artery. They transmit visual signals and blood to the orbit, respectively. Next question is, what is the primary action of the maximus? And the answer is hip extension, because it is the strongest extensor of hip, active during walking and climbing. Next question is, which nerve is injured in winging of the scapula? And the answer is along thoracic nerve. It innervates to the serratus anterior, and injury causes scapular winging. The next question is what is the primary blood supply to the stomach? And the answer is celiac tract. Its branches left gastric, splenic, most common hepatic supply the stomach. The next question is which structure forms the floor of the popliteal fossa? And the answer is popliteus muscle because it lies deep to the fossa, aiding in knee flexion and rotation. The next question is what is the nerve supply to the latissimus dorsi? And the answer is thoracodorsal nerve because this nerve arises from the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. The next question is which bone articulates with the clavicle at the shoulder? And the answer is scapula because the acro acromioclavicle joint connects the clavicle to the acromion. The next question is what is the primary content of the adductor canal? And the answer is femoral artery, vein, and saphenous nerve. The structures pass through this canal in the thigh. Which the next question is which muscle is the chief supinator of the forearm? And the answer is biceps brachii. It supinates the forearm when the elbow is flexed. The next question is what is the most common site of skull fracture? And the answer is temporal bone because its thin structure makes it prone or to trauma, often affecting nearby structures. The next question is which structure passes through the foramen magnum? And the answer is medulla oblongata. It connects the brainstem to the spinal cord with vertebral arteries and meninges. The next question is what is the primary action of the quadriceps femoris? And the answer is knee extension because this muscle group extends the leg at the knee joint. The next question is which nerve supplies the skin over deltoid? And the answer is axillary nerve because its superior lateral cutaneous branch innervates this region. The next question is what is the primary blood supply to the pancreas? And the answer is splenic artery because its branches along the pancreatico-duodenal arteries supply the pancreas. The next question is which structure forms the medial walls of axilla? And the answer is serratus anterior because it lies along the chest wall supporting axillary contents. The next question is what is the nerve supply to the tensor fascial lata? And the answer is superior gluteal nerve because it innervates the muscle, aiding in hip abduction and stabilization. The next question is which bone forms the floor of the nasal cavity? And the answer is palatine bone because its horizontal plate along with the maxilla forms the hard palate. The next question is what is the primary action of the pectoralis major? And the answer is shoulder adduction and medial rotation. It pulls the arm toward the body and rotates its inward. The next question is what structure passes through the greater sciatic foramen? And the answer is sciatic nerve. It exits the pelvis to supply the lower limb along with gluteal vessels. The next question is what is the most common site of metacarpal fracture? And the answer is fifth metacarpal, that is Boxer's fracture, because it occurs from punching a hard surface, affecting the neck of the bone. The next question is which nerve supplies the trapezius muscle? And the answer is sensory nerve CN11. It provides the motor innervation and sensory input from C3 to C4. The next question is what is the primary blood supply to the liver? And the answer is hepatic artery and portal vein. The liver receives dual blood supply with the portal vein providing 75%. The next question is what is which muscle is the chief pronator of the forearm? And the answer is pronator teres. It rotates the forearm to a palm down position. The next question is what is the primary content of the femoral sheath? And the answer is femoral artery, vein, and canal. The canal contains lymphatics but not the femoral nerve. Next question is which structure forms the roof of the orbit? And the answer is frontal bone. Its orbital plate separates the orbit from the anterior cranial fossa. The next question is what is the nerve supply to the rectus abdominis? And the answer is thoraco-abdominal nerves T7 to T12. These nerves innervate the anterior abdominal wall muscles. The next question is which bone articulates with the tibia at the ankle? And the answer is talus. It forms the talocrural joint enabling ankle movement. The next question is what is the primary action of the gastrocnemius? And the answer is plantar flexion of the ankle. It also assists in knee flexion and acting on two joints. The next question is which structure passes through the lesser sciatic foramen? And the answer is obturator internus tendon because it exits the pelvis to insert on the femur, aiding in hip rotation. The first question is, what is the primary source of energy for cardiac muscle? And the answer is fatty acids, because the heart preferentially uses fatty acids via beta oxidation for ATP production. The next question is, what is which hormone increases blood glucose by gluconeogenesis? And the answer is epinephrine, because it stimulates the liver glycogen breakdown, releasing glucose during stress. The next question is, what is the primary regulator of respiratory rate? And the answer is medullary chemoreceptors, because it respond to changes in CSF pH driven by CO2 levels. The next question is, which ion is critical for neurotransmitter release at synapses? And the answer is calcium. Influx of calcium into presynaptic terminals triggers vesicle release. The next question is, what is the primary function of the loop of Henle? And the answer is urinary concentration. It creates a medullary osmotic gradient, enabling water reabsorption. The next question is, which hormone stimulates milk ejection in lactation? And the answer is oxytocin. It causes myoepithelial cells contraction in mammary glands. The next question is, what is the primary determinant of resting membrane potential? And the answer is potassium ion gradient. The potassium leak channels maintain a negative intracellular potential. The next question is, which reflex control heart rate via the vagus nerve? And the answer is baroreceptor reflex, because it modulates heart rate in response to blood pressure changes. The next question is, what is the primary site of erythropoietin production? And the answer is kidneys. Peritubular cells produce erythropoietin to stimulate red blood cells production. The next question is, which gas is primary stimulus for peripheral chemoreceptors? The answer is oxygen, because low arterial oxygen, yeah, O2, activates carotid and erotic bodies, increasing ventilation. The next question is, what is the primary role of surfactant in the lungs? And the answer is reduced surface tension. It prevents alveolar collapse, improving lung compliance. The next question is, which hormone inhibit insulin secretion? And the answer is somatostatin. It regulates pancreatic hormone release, including insulin suppression. The next question is, what is the primary source of body heat production? And the answer is skeletal muscle, because skeletal contraction and metabolism generate the majority of body heat. The next question is, which ion is essential for muscle contraction? And the answer is calcium. It binds to troponin, enabling actin myosin interaction. The next question is, what is the primary regulator of aldosterone secretion? And the answer is angiotensin 2. It stimulates the adrenal cortex to release aldosterone, promoting sodium reabsorption. The next question is, which reflex prevents overinflation of lungs? And the answer is Herring-Brewer reflex. The stretch receptors in the lungs inhibit inspiration when overexpanded. The next question is, what is the primary function of the proximal convoluted tubule? And the answer is reabsorption of nutrients. It reabsorbs glucose, amino acids, and most of the filtered sodium. The next question is, which hormone stimulates red blood cell production? And the answer is erythropoietin, because it acts as bone marrow to increase erythrocyte production in hypoxia. The next question is, what is the primary mechanism of CO2 transport in blood? And the answer is bicarbonate ions. Carbon dioxide is converted to HCO3 in red cells, carried to the lungs. The next question is, which part of the ECG represents ventricular depolarization? And the answer is QRS complex, because it reflects the electrical activity of ventricular contraction. The next question is, what is the primary stimulus for insulin secretion? And the answer is glucose. Elevated blood glucose triggers beta cells insulin release. The next question is, which hormone increases calcium reabsorption in the kidneys? And the answer is parathyroid hormone. It enhances renal calcium retention and bone resorption. The next question is, what is the primary function of the sympathetic nervous system? And the answer is fight or flight response, because it prepares the body for the stress by increasing heart rate and glucose release. The next question is, which ion is critical for cardiac action potential? Phase 0. And the answer is sodium, because rapid sodium influx causes depolarization in cardiac cells. The next question is, what is the primary site of ADH action in the kidney? And the answer is collecting duct. Antidiuretic hormone increases water permeability via aquaporins. The next question is which reflex regulates blood pressure via carotid sinus, and the answer is baroreceptive reflex. It senses arterial pressure changes, adjusting heart rate and vascular tone. The next question is what is the primary function of the cerebellum, and the answer is motor coordination. It fine tubules movement and maintains balance. The next question is which hormone stimulates gastric acid secretion, and the answer is gastrin because it is released by G cells promoting HCl production in the stomach. The next question is what is the primary source of energy during prolonged fasting, and the answer is ketone bodies because the liver produces ketones from the fatty acids during starvation. The next question is which neurotransmitter is dominant in the parasympathetic system, and the answer is acetylcholine because it mediates rest and digest responses via muscarinic receptors. The next question is what is the primary regulator of body fluid osmolarity, and the answer is ADH, antidiuretic hormone, because it controls water reabsorption in response to plasma osmolarity. The next question is which hormone promotes sodium excretion in the kidney, and the answer is atrial natriuretic peptide, that is ANP. It opposes aldosterone, reducing blood volume and pressure. The next question is what is the primary function of sodium potassium ATPs pump, and the answer is maintain ion gradients. It pumps sodium out and potassium into the cells, sustaining membrane potential. The next question is which reflex mediates the GAC response. Um, Glossopharyngeal nerve CN9. It senses pharyngeal stimulation, triggering reflex contraction. The next question is what is the primary source of cortisol production, and the answer is adrenal cortex. The zona fasciculata produces cortisol regulating stress and metabolism. The next question is which hormone stimulates gluconeogenesis in the liver, and the answer is glucagon. It promotes glucose production during hypoglycemia. The next question is what is the primary function of the reticular formation, and the answer is arousal and consciousness. It regulates wakefulness and tension in the brainstem. The next question is which iron is critical for neurotransmitter release in the CNS, and the answer is calcium because it triggers synaptic vesicle exocytosis at neuronal synapses. The next question is what is the primary mechanism of heat loss in the body, and the answer is radiation because heat is lost to the environment via infrared waves. The next question is which hormone stimulates thyroid hormone synthesis, and the answer is TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. It acts on the thyroid to produce T3 and T4. The next question is what is the primary function of the juxtaglomerular apparatus, and the answer is renin secretion because it regulates blood pressure via the renin angiotensin system. The next question is which reflex control pupil size in response to light, and the answer is pupillary light reflex because it involves cranial nerves 2 and 3 adjusting pupil diameter. The next question is what is the primary source of ATP in anaerobic condition, and the answer is glycolysis because it produces ATP with oxygen yielding lactate as a byproduct. The next question is which hormone inhibits prolactin secretion, and the answer is dopamine because it acts on the pituitary to suppress prolactin release. The next question is what is the primary function of the vestibular system, and the answer is balance and spatial orientation. It detects head movement and position via the inner ear. The next question is which ion is critical for repolarization in neurons, and the answer is potassium. Efflux of potassium restores the negative membrane potential. The next question is what is the primary regulator of pancreatic bicarbonate secretion, and the answer is secretin because it stimulates the pancreas to neutralize gastric acid in the duodenum. The next question is which hormone promotes bone mineralization, and the answer is calcitonin because it lowers blood calcium by inhibiting osteoclast activity. The next question is what is the primary function of the spleen, and the answer is filter blood. It removes old red blood cells and pathogens, aiding immunity. The next question is which reflex mediates swallowing, and the answer is deglutation reflex. It coordinates pharyngeal and esophageal muscles via cranial nerves 9, and that's it. The next question is, what is the primary source of energy in glycolysis? And the answer is glucose, because it is broken down to pyruvate, yielding 2 ATP and 2 NADH per molecule. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in ketonuria? And the answer is phenylalanine hydroxylase. This deficiency causes phenylalanine accumulation, leading to intellectual disability. The next question is, what is the primary storage form of glucose in the liver? And the answer is glycogen, because it is stored as glycogen granules mobilized during hyperglycemia. The next question is, which vitamin is a cofactor for transamination reactions? And the answer is vitamin B6, pyridoxine. Pyridoxal phosphate facilitates amino acid metabolism. The next question is, what is the end product of purine metabolism? And the answer is uric acid, because it is excreted by the kidney and excess causes gout. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in Gaucher's disease? And the answer is glucocerebrosidase. This lysosomal enzyme deficiency causes glycocerebroside accumulation. The next question is, what is the primary function of the pentose phosphate pathway? And the answer is NADPH production, because it provides reducing power for biosynthesis and antioxidant defense. The next question is, which molecule is final electron acceptor in the ACT? The answer is oxygen. It forms water in the mitochondrial electron transport chain. The next question is, what is the primary source of ketone bodies? And the answer is fatty acids, because they are synthesized in the liver during fasting or starvation. The next question is, which vitamin deficiency causes scurvy? And the answer is vitamin C. Ascorbic acid is needed for collagen synthesis, and deficiency causes bleeding gums. The next question is, what is the primary enzymes in the rate limiting steps of glycolysis? And the answer is phosphofructokinase 1, PFK1, also known as PFC1. It controls glucose metabolism by phosphorylating fructose 6 phosphate. The next question is, which molecule is the precursor of heme synthesis? And the answer is succinyl CoA. It combines with the glycine in mitochondria to form ALA, the first step. The next question is, what is the primary function of HDL cholesterol? And the answer is reverse cholesterol transport. It removes cholesterol from tissues to the liver for extraction. For excretion. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in maple syrup urine disease? And the answer is branch chain keto acid dehydrogenase. And because this deficiency causes accumulation of branch chain amino acids. The next question is, what is the primary product of fatty acid oxidation? And the answer is CoA. It enters the TCA cycle for energy production. The next question is, which vitamin is a cofactor for carboxylation reaction? And the answer is biotin, because it is essential for enzymes like pyruvate carboxylase in gluconeogenesis. The next question is, what is the primary source of ammonia in the urea cycle? And the answer is glutamate, because it is deaminated in the liver to provide ammonia for urea synthesis. The next question is, which enzyme is inhibited by statins? And the answer is HMG CoA reductase. It is the rate limiting enzyme in cholesterol synthesis. The next question is, what is the primary function of corecycle? And the answer is lactate recycling. It converts muscle lactate to glucose in the liver during exercise. The next question is, which vitamin deficiency causes beriberi? And the answer is vitamin B1, that is thiamine. It is a cofactor for pyruvate dehydrogenase, and deficiency causes neurological issues. The next question is, what is the primary source of energy in prolonged exercise? And the answer is fatty acids. Mid oxidation provides sustained energy for glycogen depletion. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in galactosemia? And the answer is galactose 1 phosphate uridyl transferase. And because this deficiency causes galactose accumulation, leading to liver and eye damage. The next question is, what is the primary function of a TCA cycle? And the answer is energy production. It oxidizes acetyl-CoA to produce ATP, NADH, and FADH2. The next question is, which molecule is the precursor for steroid hormones? And the answer is cholesterol, because it is converted to uh, preg- pregnenolone in the adrenal glands and gonads. The next question is, what is the primary enzyme in DNA replication? And the answer is DNA polymerase. It synthesizes new DNA strands by adding nucleotides. The next question is, which vitamin is essential for the blood clotting? And the answer is vitamin K. It is a cofactor for gamma carboxylation of clotting factors. The next question is, what is the primary source of carbon for gluconeogenesis? And the answer is lactate. It is converted to pyruvate in the liver for glucose synthesis. Next question is, which enzyme is deficient in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome? And the answer is hypoxanthine guanine phosphoribosyl transferase, 8-GPRT. This causes uric acid overproduction and neurological symptoms. The next question is, what is the primary function of cytochrome P450 enzymes? And the answer is drug metabolism. The oxidize xenobiotics in the liver for detoxification. Which enzyme? The next question is, which enzyme deficiency causes rickets? And the answer is vitamin D. It impairs calcium absorption, leading to defective bone mineralization. The next question is, what is the primary product of pyrimidine synthesis? And the answer is UMP, uridine monophosphate. It is the precursor for RNA and DNA nucleotides. The next question is, which enzyme is involved in the rate limiting step of bile acid synthesis? And the answer is 7 alpha hydroxylase. It converts cholesterol to bile acids in the liver. The next question is, what is the primary source of energy in starvation? And the answer is ketone bodies. They are produced from fatty acids to fuel the brain. The next question is, which molecule is the precursor of catecholamines? And the answer is tyrosine. It is converted to dopamine, non-epinephrine, and epinephrine. The next question is, what is the primary function of ferritin? And the answer is iron storage. It sequesters iron in cells to prevent toxicity. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in Tay-Sachs disease? And the answer is hexosaminidase A. This causes GM2 ganglioside accumulation, leading to neuro degeneration. The next question is, what is the primary source of NADPH for fatty acid synthesis? And the answer is pentose phosphate pathway. It provides reducing equivalents for lipid biosynthesis. The next question is, which vitamin is a cofactor for fatty acid synthesis? And the answer is biotin. It is required for acetyl-CoA carboxylase forming malonyl CoA. Next question is, what is the primary function of urea cycle? And the answer is ammonia detoxification, because it converts toxic ammonia to urea for renal excretion. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in alkaptonuria? And the answer is homogenetic oxidase. This causes homogenetic acid accumulation, leading to dark urine. The next question is, what is the primary source of energy in red blood cells? And the answer is glucose. They rely on anaerobic glycolysis due to lack of mitochondria. The next question is, which molecule is the precursor of serotonin? And the answer is tryptophan. It is converted into 5-hydroxy uh, 5-hydroxy tryptamine in the brain. The next question is, what is the primary function of transferrin? And the answer is iron transport. It carries iron in plasma to tissues and bone marrow. The next question is, which enzyme is involved in the rate limiting step of glycolysis? And the answer is phosphofructose kinase 1. It regulates the conversion of fructose 6 phosphate to fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. The next question is, what is the primary source of ATP in aerobic conditions? And the answer is oxidative phosphorylation. It produces ATP via the electron transport chain in mitochondria. The next question is, which vitamin deficiency causes pellagra? And the answer is niacin vitamin B3. It causes dermatitis, diarrhea, and dementia. The next question is, what is the primary function of shikimate pathway? And the answer is aromatic amino acid synthesis. It produces phenylalanine and tyrosine in plants and bacteria. The next question is, which enzyme is deficient in Fabry's disease? And the answer is alpha galactosidase A. This causes globotriaerosyl ceramide accumulation, leading to organ damage. The next question is, what is the primary source of cholesterol in the body? And the answer is endogenous synthesis. The liver produces most cholesterol via the uh, mevalonate pathway. The next question is, which molecule is the precursor for nitric oxide? And the answer is arginine. It is converted to NO by nitric oxide synthase in endothelial cells.
Dear FMG warriors, you have studied hard, sacrificed sleep, and stayed focused. Now it's your time to trust your preparation and believe in yourself. Stay calm and confident. July 20th is your victory day. You are not just taking an exam, you are stepping into your future. Go crush it. You have got this.